Good afternoon, Nashville. This is James Grady from Out and About Nashville, and joining me tonight is Chris Sanders, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Equality Project. I contacted Chris because I wanted to introduce our community to a new project that TEP is launching, the Marissa Richmond Public Policy Fellowship. And, this is an important program for Tennessee activists and Tennessee up-and-coming politically interested young people. So, Chris, what can you tell me about this program? I know it's still in its infancy, but...
Right. This Public Policy Fellowship will be for Black, trans, and gender nonconforming, non-binary college students in Tennessee. We will have one fellow in East Tennessee, one in West, and one in Middle, because the grand divisions of the state are so important, and we want to make sure we get geographic diversity as well. And this will involve, there will be a stipend, and for each of 2 semesters, for about 2 months, we will have weekly Zoom meetings. It's not safe to do anything else yet, and that's the best way to handle the geographic diversity. And they will be conversations that emphasize skills in government relations and public policy, but also networking. So we will bring in, people who are in government, who are in campaigns, who are elected officials, so that these students can network with them.
And over the course of this internship, will they be introduced to organizations like the Victory Fund or other governmental agencies, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that'll definitely be part of it. We don't have any claim to being yet one of the premier internships, and I hope what it will help lead to is getting these students a foot in the door for internships with those organizations, with a member of Congress's office where they can do an internship. But we want to make sure they get a broad network and they get some information that will be helpful if they choose to go into public policy, because we really think that's part of the long-term solution. It may even be part of a short-term solution. I mean, imagine if there were a Black trans student in the Secretary of State's office in Tennessee when we were discussing issues like voter ID, or more in the legislature when that law was passed. To really talk about the barriers that things like that present. So we think that, the people most affected themselves can be powerful actors and voices if they can be in those positions. So I hope this will be a pipeline, and I think it'll be very good for our organization too, in terms of learning, but also having advocates who can speak out. I mean, write op-eds or be available for media calls when you want to know what's going on with the bill.
Right, absolutely. How did this take shape? I assume, of course, the recent Black Lives Matters protests and the most recent legislative session really must have had some impact in focusing in on this group.
It did. The legislature is increasingly attacking trans youth, trying to prevent them from playing high school sports, cutting off medically appropriate affirming care. For years, we faced a bathroom bill or variations of a bathroom bill, and I don't know what they'll think up next, but what I do know is, we need younger trans people involved in the public policy side of things. And I think they can be very effective as voices, as educators, as just a clear example of this is the impact this bad legislation is making. So, but we also, again, want them in positions of being elected officials, running campaigns, working in the legislature as research analysts, being LGBT liaisons for cities,
Mm,
where they're always a part of the conversation.
right.
So, um, you know, it has its origin um, both in recent events, but also the goals of advocacy.
Right.
I think that's the goal is the origin is in the future, if you will.
Right. So, I know that this is sort of a drawn out process, but when can we expect the applications to become available?
I think it'll be late next week.
Okay.
Um, and we'll probably take a month to receive those, I would expect. And we would probably name fellows at some point late in or mid to late August. And I think we would probably start mid-September with the program itself.
Okay.
And again, we would go about 2 months of the semester. Many semesters are going to be shortened or compressed at campuses. I know that many are skipping fall break, for example, and getting out before Thanksgiving and not coming back until January.
Right.
So we have a lot of things like that to consider. Uh, One hopes that there will be a vaccine early next year, who knows,
Yeah.
and that the spring semester will be more normal, but we just don't know yet. We're going to do everything by Zoom at first and then take it from there.
So it's the Marissa Richmond Fellowship.
Yep.
How did you get Marissa to agree to have her name put on something?
Well, I asked, and you know, Marissa has an approach to advocacy. I mean, it's wide ranging. I mean, she's done federal, state, and local,
Right.
but she gets more than 99.99999% of the people in Tennessee that state level advocacy matters. She spent a lot of time on it.
Right.
And, she had been our public policy chair years ago for, I guess, at least 4 or 5 years, maybe, I'm not sure, and was a founder, the president, and lobbyist for TTPC, which did state level lobbying and advocacy. So, it was a natural fit, I think. And I think I won't speak for Marissa, but I would say she would like to see more people focusing on that level of advocacy
Right.
among all the challenges that Marissa works on. And again, I'm not speaking for her, but I know that she definitely has a heart for the state level work. And we would like to see some more African American trans people follow in her footsteps, really.
Absolutely. And I know her history with college aged young people is long.
Right?
She's had an important impact
Yes.
on
She
visibility
is a
there.
political historian, at MTSU, but she speaks at campuses around the country,
Right.
and so I think that's another good fit. A selfish aspect of this is to focus on college students. They will help us recruit the students.
Yes.
And I'm not saying I'm lazy, but I'm saying I could use all the help I could get. So,
Yes. Definitely. So beyond this, I know the fall is looming, summer is long. What is TEP up to preparing for the inevitable return of January?
yeah. So, had a conversation this week with someone who I hope will be our Sumner County chair. Sumner County is actually very important in the legislative scheme of things because the House Majority Leader represents part of Sumner County, and one of the state senators who ran the bill that would freeze in place gender affirming care standards for trans youth represents Sumner County. So we really need to build up there.
Right.
I know to your listeners, they may think, well, that's one county out of 95. It's extremely significant legislatively right now.
Right.
So we need to do some building up there. It's also a place where the population is growing. I will tell you personally, not speaking for any organization, one of my priorities is to see Brandon Thomas elected to the Tennessee House of Representatives.
Right.
Um, you know, Brandon is a member of our community. He's married to a trans man. He is uniquely positioned to address our issues and racial justice issues. And he is someone who has cared about advocacy for a long time. He's been a good advocate since he was in college. So I think having his voice there means a lot. And I'm personally going to do what I can to assist him. No one person can do enough, so I would encourage anybody to get involved with his campaign. But that's a priority for me personally because, well, I think the world of Brandon, but I think it would benefit the community immensely.
For sure. Are there any other races that you view as particularly, maybe there's a vulnerable Republican that may face a strong challenger, or where we can make some inroads?
Well, there are some places where the community might want to look at really helping with the defense. I mean, I think of Knoxville. Gloria Johnson is a great champion for equality, for example, and she's a voice who's needed. And
Yeah.
she's on the education committee where a lot of bills come through. So people in East Tennessee should certainly look at her race and get involved. I think there are more that could be close. This year I did a webinar with Mariah Phillips recently, who's running in Rutherford County, and she's a good ally. Again, speaking for myself, I think the world of her personally. And her opponent is a professor at MTSU, and I think he was perceived as someone who would be more moderate. Well, his style is moderate, but his voting record, he votes with, the caucus. And I just want, your readers, your listeners, your viewers to know the Tennessee House of Representatives right now is truly one of the most dangerous legislative chambers in the entire country. To everyone who has been historically marginalized in this country. They are bringing the worst possible bills with vehemence against us. I mean, they knew the Senate was not going to take up that anti-trans athlete bill, and they went ahead and still passed the damn thing on the floor of the House.
Right.
For spite. And that's dangerous. They were still in the last days trying to advance the bill that would make the Bible the state book.
Yeah.
There were bills advancing to criminalize the use of sidewalk chalk by protesters.
Right.
It's an extremely dangerous place right now, and there's work that needs to be done. One can work constructively at this point in the Tennessee Senate,
right?
But the Tennessee House is tough.
Just one last question. I think I think a lot of people were really surprised by the last-minute return of the abortion bill that the governor sort of crafted and brought to the legislature, and it was kind of a surprise disappointment at the very end there.
It could have happened to us.
Yes.
Our bills could have been part of the trade.
Right.
The House leadership could have said, yes, the abortion bill, and we want this, this, and this, since they've already passed the House floor. It didn't happen to us, but it could have. And that's why you watch and you work until the very end.
Right.
Because bills are not, usually, if one chamber is not going to move a bill, the other chamber gives up. That has been the tradition for as long as I've been working on stuff.
Sure.
There's always been the logical possibility that bills could be revived at the last minute.
Right.
But typically, that's not what happens.
Right. Yeah. That's so much of the time filing it and getting in the news about it is enough to, do what you need to do with your constituents. But
Right.
The last year has definitely been pretty telling. So we definitely want to watch out and if, people should follow the TEP's Facebook page to watch
Sure.
out for advocacy training, because I know you guys will probably heat that up coming into the next year. And
Yes, we'll have to figure out how to adapt that. We've been able to adapt the days on the Hill.
right.
We've been able to change those into phone meetings that the district captains have with their legislators, and that can work. doing the Zoom training for Advocacy 101 and taking the questions is something I'm going to have to get up to speed on.
Right.
Because I think people will check out more. When I'm in the room with people, I can tell when they're checking out and I can shift. It's going to be harder on Zoom, and I know you know this because you've been doing these Zoom events and meetings and discussions, since the pandemic, before it even broke out. But I'm a little older than you, James, and I'm a little less technically savvy, and it's going to take me a little bit longer. But we're gonna get there and figure out how to make it work for the new legislative session.
Luckily, you'll have a handful of bright young college students working on an internship for you coming soon.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
Thank
Chris,
goodness.
thank you so much for giving us that update, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right.